Welcome back, DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast. We have a very special guest on the show this week. It's been almost 3 years since his last been on, so Callum Ilott, it's great to have you back on the show. Maybe a little bit long overdue, but generally just how have you been doing? I mean, I won't say the last 3 years because a lot's gone on the last 3 years, but good to catch up with you again.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been 3 years. That's funny. I see your logos around, and it doesn't feel like 3 years. Lots happened up and down, but yeah, it's been good. What about you guys?
Well, lots happened in 3 years, I'll tell you that much. But no, excellent. Back here in what you should call home in the United Kingdom, as we've been discussing pre-recording. We've got a bit of a drought. You've got a bit of storm going on, so we're kind of the exact polar opposites in the world currently. So
we've got what you need. Maybe it'll pass over.
Yeah, maybe we should do a swap deal, so we're still in the transfer window. We'll give you our drought and you can have our storms. No, we can have your storms is what I should say. I guess before we start off getting into the kind of the proper stuff, quote unquote, we need to start off with a little anecdote we had earlier on this year where me and Archie were at the Indy 500, and pretty much within an hour of being there, we came across you in a rather different form.
An elevator.
In an elevator or a lift, if we're being British, on the way down to the bottom floor of the IMS Media Centre. You were in disguise. I know Archie spotted you straight away.
I don't know. I still don't know how. It wasn't even the card. It wasn't even the card.
No, it wasn't the card. I had it facing that way.
For me, it was your outfit. Card.
I think it was kind of you were just wearing your kind of like British kind of hoodie jeans. I just don't know. I don't know how.
Yeah, I didn't. So the disguise was good enough. I could obviously tell someone in disguise, but it was the hard card which came where it's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense now. Anyway, how was it pretending to be an Australian for all of one morning? Did you enjoy that kind of IndyCar social filming individual like Malukas was a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I mean, so just for clarity, I did all of that for a parking pass.
Seriously? Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it's been because not exactly being entered in IndyCar makes life quite difficult for someone who isn't, how do I say it? Obviously I'm connected, but I hate asking for favors. That's just not my style. So I like a transactional sort of thing. So it was originally tough to get a hard card earlier in the year, but I managed to sort that out. And then the parking pass for that. It was an interesting morning. I did a bit more during that week. Look, when you're not doing anything, it's nice to be there and doing something and contributing. I have to say that some people, like drivers and some members of the media, enjoyed it. Some members of the media didn't take kindly to it before they realized who it was. And I do understand. I do understand that, but it was funny. At the end of the day, everyone had a laugh, and I mean, my Australian accent's not bad. I can do other accents, but I try to refrain from those.
It was a funny way to kick off our trip. I mean, like, who recognized you? Who didn't recognize you? Like, what was the situation there?
Everyone recognized me except Takuma. He was a good sport though. He didn't really, but the other ones, they all got it straight away. I think, it was too obvious.
I have seen the clip with Takuma, and I said to Archie before this. So on our document says who recognised him. I put in brackets Sato. So exactly on the same page there. I've seen the clip.
He was the only one though, only one.
But I saw the clip. He took it very well. He was still very professional given the circumstances. So
I mean, you guys do a good job with all the questions, right? Because I was thinking the night before. I'm like, what do I ask these people? Like, I know what I can ask this guy. I don't know what I can ask this guy. What would be considered offensive? Because I obviously can go a little bit further than most people can of what people who I know of what they can take and who can't. So I was trying to push the boundaries of what was acceptable to bring up in interviews, and it's fun, but it's tough. You guys have a challenge. Like, getting the right questions for the right people is tough.
I'm glad it gives that appreciation. But like, were you like trying to interview them sincerely? Like, I do remember watching the video, but I don't remember kind of any of it. Were you trying to be sincere? Were you trying to kind of be a bit jokey? Like,
well, so I got the list of people who were attending that day, and so I tried to like set up a few questions for the ones I could, and then I don't know, I got bored and then ended up doing something else. So then some of them were on the fly. I think it was like a 50-50. Some were really good on the fly, and then some I had preempted. Yeah, because also like a couple of people at the Indy GP crashed and didn't have great weekends, and you're like, well, do I, don't I? How's this going? Yeah, like Rosenquist had a really bad weekend at the Indy GP and then ends up winning the 500. I mean, I probably could have lent in a bit more to his bad weekend, but
well, yeah, it all works out pretty well for him.
But he had a kid as well, so yes. I mean, I couldn't.
That was my first question to him in the bullpen. So there we are. Let's move on to probably what we should actually be talking about. As entertaining as disguises are at the Indy 500, for those listeners who don't know, you're obviously racing with Wright Motorsports and IMSA this season. So kind of just tell us how generally has your season been going, kind of how happy have you been with it so far?
Yeah, it's been very up and down. That's kind of what can happen in the endurance world. Like it's hard to, without putting onto specifics, right? Like we had a great weekend in Sebring and then went to Long Beach and it was just no pace at all. And that was it's been a bit like that. We haven't found a middle ground. So yeah, we've got a podium at Sebring, podium at Watkins. I think we figured something out after Watkins, which kind of prevented us from maintaining the lead there and holding on to that win. But again, second's not bad at all. And tried a different strategy in Road America, and unfortunately there was a small mistake at the end of the race. We swapped me and Tom to give him a shot, and yeah, it just it's just trying to put everything together, and we haven't had that season. Like we got ourselves back up to 5th in the championship. With considering Daytona, we were out 2 hours in, so you miss out on the 6-hour points, the 12-hour points, and the 24-hour points. So we were doing a good job to get back up, but we've stunted ourselves a little bit. So yeah, it's been good, rewarding in some ways. I would say as well, the Porsche itself is a very difficult car to drive. I would actually say that the GTP and the GT3 are very difficult cars. So that's been a interesting challenge from my side. Like I drove the Ferrari 488 GT3 in 2021 and gelled really well with that car. And this one I've gelled well with, but it requires a very different style, which is why I think the guys who are quick, like Heinrich, etc., are very strong in everything else, because they know that there's a specific driving style that you have to unlock, which doesn't work in everything, but I can understand like why they're so fast when they jump into other things. So yeah, once I got the hang of that, I think I've been very competitive. It's just a tough car to race. There's a couple of cars that if you come out the corner side by side with, will end up, you'll end up on the wrong side of that come the end of the straight. But then we have our benefits in terms of like end of stint pace, etc. Then the other thing just wanted to say is like, it's great to be driving something, because there's a chance that I wouldn't have been driving anything this year, and to be able to do the full IMSA championship in a new car with a great team and great teammates, it's good fun. And yeah, I mean, I can't complain, but it's a change of fate. If I didn't take that opportunity, I'd be sat here doing nothing. So
nice. And obviously we are an IndyCar show, and you wouldn't be going to these lengths to get parking passes if you didn't want to be present in the paddock and ultimately have that goal of getting back there. So I guess if you could just give us an update, kind of where you are up to in terms of talking to people, in terms of trying to get back to IndyCar, trying to essentially get a future in the series again. So yeah, what is the situation at the moment?
Yeah, it's a tough one. The market's a bit weird. There's been a ton of people throwing a lot of money around, at least verbally, which makes options quite tempting, and changes, the way things are perceived. But at the end of the day, these teams want to compete and they want to be strong. And especially on the smaller team side, I've shown what I can do. So that's a positive. I just don't know which way it's kind of going to shape out yet. And I think, with the direction of charters and new car, these teams are going to want to iron out, to have 2-3 strong drivers across everything and not always go for the best financial option, because I think in the hope that, you know, with the new car and the charters, that the financial side gets recovered a bit more. I think as well with the Freedom 250, a few more viewers, etc., that the sponsorship is leaning more from the generic B2B to B2C. It's right at the cusp now with the viewership that we got. So yeah, I think it's trending in the right direction. As a series, it's trending in the right direction. I think, you know, this season has been tough on the driver market. There's been a few changes which were very unexpected. And then, yeah, from my side, like ideally this year I wanted to do both IndyCar and IMSA and make both work. That might be tough next year, but that would still be an ideal, especially the endurance races of IMSA. But, you know, I'm at that stage where I gave up a great deal to come back to do IndyCar. And obviously, you know, that hasn't worked out the complete way that I expected it to. But, you know, it's hard to just accept that that's kind of the end of it, and, you know, you move on. And I'm in a bit of a place career-wise where, you know, nothing has been ideal. And I'm not, you know, I'm very grateful to be driving, to be a professional race driver, and that, but you have a window of where it's achievable, lucrative, etc. Like, and I'm still within that, and I'd rather try to achieve what I know I'm capable of, and if it fails, you know, restart another way, which is where, like, what I'm trying to say towards IndyCar. But at the same time, I'm like, there's this little bit of me that goes, well, if you'd have taken that deal to stay and work in hypercar, you know, you'd have that career for the rest of your life, and you wouldn't, you know, you'd be settled, you wouldn't be complaining, etc. And yeah, it's just I'm in the middle there of like, what career wise, what do you do, right? Because, you know, that probably was the more secure route. But at the same time, there's just something about IndyCar which, you know, is so enticing, so competitive. And I really, you know, I've said it most years now, but I really feel not undervalued, but underappreciated compared to some other guys. And it all comes from the fact that I've always been with new teams, and I haven't been able to show, you know, like, where's the comparison? What comparison do we have to any drivers who've, you know, achieved other stuff, right? So that's just my, like, personal side of things, where I'm like, really, there's until you have a direct comparison, do you want to give up on this, right? Because, you know, some people don't think I'm good enough. Some people really think I do, that I am. I think I'm very, very quick. I've done a very good job with setting up new teams and taking a package that isn't quite there, to, in the last 4 out of 5 races, finishing top 10s, right? And that goes from everything to the engineering, working with the engineering of the team, to, you know, pushing for design parts of the cars, to the pit stop side. Like, okay, I'm not in the pit stops, but getting the most out of the team, and, you know, the real drive on that side. And it's just, I'd love to just go in and not have to do that, have to start from scratch. You know, even the expansion from 1 car to 2 cars in 22 to 23, you know, there's a lot of sacrifices on the pit stop side that we had at the beginning of the year when you expand. And yeah, I just wanna go in, you know, and see where I can be. It's a lot of words for, you know, that was like a 10-minute answer, but yeah.
Very detailed.
It's
That's
great.
what we like. And obviously, you kind of allude to there, IndyCar is ultimately your goal, your priority if you want to return there rather than other series. But kind of how much do you balance wanting to return to IndyCar, but also recognise you'd rather be racing something rather than nothing? So kind of how much do you explore IndyCar versus looking at options in IMSA and maybe returning to WEC, considering you had the success that you had there a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I think I'm very fortunate in the aspect that I've done everything now, right? So I've done the GT World Challenge, Le Mans in 2021. I've done IndyCar 22, 23, a little bit of 24 and 25, right? I've done IMSA now the last year. So I'm kind of covered for being able to drive something, right? That, whether it's, I don't want to say last minute opportunities. I could leave it pretty late and have an opportunity to do something. Will it be the best? No. And that was where, again, with my teammate Adam and team owner, I was very fortunate with him that I've known him for 6-7 years, and 6 7, sorry, that's the youth. I've known him for a long time now, and we've kept in constant communication. Like, he knew roughly what was going on with Prema, and suggested that this could be an option, and I was able to develop on that. There was another opportunity that I could have taken, and I think that obviously I have those relationships. I have built some other relationships as well. I'm not worried about the driving side of things. The thing is my career, but I'm in a situation right now where I thought of it like this year, but it's just not been exactly how I expected. But that next year is one of those things where I will, no matter what, if I get exactly what I want right now, I don't need to worry about this. But if I don't get exactly what I want, I'll think about what I need to do for the long term next year, because that's kind of my cutoff point. Is it's like when I was a reserve driver for Alfa Romeo in Formula One. You have like 1 year where you can be a reserve driver, and then you kind of just get forgotten and pushed to the side. And I can see it. Like, it's not nice, but like, I see it in the media with the silly season stuff. I've gone to every race except Markham and Mid Ohio now, but and you're not even mentioned in the silly season. You're like, well, firstly, that's bullshit, because I'm there and I'm speaking to these people and I know what the situation is, but it's just funny how quickly you get sidelined from that aspect of things. And yeah, I don't take it personally, but I just find it very interesting that that's the atmosphere. And you've got like, and this is just factually, right? 2 out of the 3 rookies are outside of leader's circle in existing teams. That was not the case when I was racing. I've finished in leader's circle every single time with new teams, but they're already like way ahead of you in the silly season side of things. So it's just, it's the way it is, but you have to keep yourself there. You have to keep turning up. There's opportunities. Lots of guys have injured themselves this year. I give them kudos for the perseverance, right? We all would. But you just keep turning up and seeing what opportunities preside.
And you obviously say you're having talks. Like, how do you approach them? Like, do you kind of in your mind have a pecking order of the availabilities or open seats that there may be? Like, do you have the same conversations with every team you speak to? Do you look at some opportunities and think, I'd like to take that, I wouldn't take this? Like, how do you actually approach all these talks?
You don't go into any of these conversations ruling anything out. There are different conversations to be had. The teams have different levels of what they expect, and there's a different demand. And back to one of my previous answers was there are people throwing around lots of different options to them, which does change the market and what's expected. But you can judge. I didn't quite get it when I first came over, and some of these conversations would be had. And I think it's a bit to do with the American mindset and how deals are spoken of and negotiated. But yeah, I have to say now I've got very good at judging people's level of interest, and you know when you're in a good position, when you're not in a good position, right? And I have to say the Americans are very different to the Europeans, and it took me a little bit of time to understand it now. But I know where I stand after every meeting now. I get it. It's funny. It's a bit painful, but yeah, I do a lot of these meetings myself. You know, there's a bit of support sometimes, but at the end of the day, these teams want to see drive, you know, from who they're employing, and whether, you know, it works out as me or someone else. I'd rather that was something I didn't do when I was younger, and maybe I missed out on, but partly I don't want to say it was an intimidation thing, but you know, I saw all these other guys get carried by other people, etc. And you know, George Russell was a great example of, you know, just doing it himself and getting him into that situation. And I probably should have taken that approach earlier, because you know, at the end of the day, no one's a better advocate than yourself, right?
And I guess kind of on that position of leading discussions with yourself with other people, like kind of what is the value of that from a personal perspective? Maybe what's the value of that from a team owner's perspective? Why might they like that?
I think it's positive and negative, right? I think for the drive of wanting to do something, I think it shows exactly why and what, and they can build a real, not psychological profile of you, but like get the real character of you. On a deal structure, it's tough to do yourself, right? Because, you know, a negotiation without an intermediary is very tough. And, you know, these guys have been in business a long time. And again, if they really want you, you know, you can ask the world, right? To a certain extent. But if they don't, you've got to find the balance of like, where do I kind of start here? How do we discuss this? And that doesn't happen till later down the road anyway.
So I guess when you're in these discussions, and especially because you're leading them yourself, like how it's a weird question, but like, how are you selling yourself to these teams? Like you say to us earlier, like you feel like you're kind of undervalued. What, when you are going into these discussions, kind of almost as a pitch, are you saying to these teams?
That's a great question. Look, I have to go off of like individual performances, right? So I'll take my 2022 year. We had multiple fast 12s, one fast 6, which ended up with a P2, and was on the front row. And I know exactly 2 corners to go where I lost the 300ths that I needed to be pole. Again, I wasn't pole, so it doesn't matter. But like that, and you know, after the first pit stop, I was in P3, and you blew up, right? Middle of the year, mid-Ohio, running P10, and you blew up. Indy 500, I crashed, couldn't do Detroit Belle Isle because my hand was broken. The next race I did was Road America, which was a week after, still with like this bone completely snapped in half. Okay, people are doing it this year, but I did half the season with, you know, my hand snapped in half, no surgery, nothing. And I still finished in leader circle in a single car, new team. Like, come on. it's not a bad rookie year when you compare it to some others, and started the foundations for that team. The next year was very, very up and down, but we had some strong performances, but we really missed the qualifying pace that year. And I don't know if it was like a tire change. I can't remember exactly what it was that year. But we just couldn't unlock any pace on the reds. But the race pace was good. And then, oh yeah, there was the Indy 500 that year where we had to change the chassis, and I worked through that. There were positives and negatives to that. The next year, I had the 500 with McLaren, the weight jacker issue, working through that, adding 7.5, 8 turns of front wing to get the thing raceable, and finishing 11th. And considering I was last again on like lap 110, had to work my way back up. So that was a standout performance on the ovals, which some people question. And then last year, like we battled so many unknown issues prior to the 500, which just killed performance in all aspects, and we'd ironed that out. And the 500 again finished 12th on track. We had really good pace, same as Daly actually. We had really good pace up until the last 2 stints, and exactly the same. I dropped like a stone the same way he did. He said it was the tires, but also at the same time I was like, mate, we both had the same thing. So I don't know if it was tires or not, but ended up getting disqualified. Again, not it was a bit complicated. Like there was error in that, but again, I didn't really understand the full details of it, and there was no leniency at all from you had guys with modified parts, etc., like new parts that weren't homologated, and there was us that didn't quite do the front wing properly, and you only get so many times to pass through tech, and we couldn't get it quite right. Anyway, whatever. And then towards the end of the year, Detroit, the race afterwards, we were running, I think it was P10, and wheel wasn't done up on the pit stop into the wall. And then it wasn't until Toronto, I think we just really hit the ground running there, and were able to kind of just keep on getting results. And it was a combination of like, we figured some stuff out in the pit stop, moved some personnel around, went from doing 10, 11 second stops to now doing competitive 7.5, 8 second stops with the tires done in 5 seconds. And the car, there was a heavy European mindset at the beginning of the year, which just didn't work with what we had. And once that was kind of changed a bit more to what I was used to, we were just able to out punch our weight in that sense, with the finishes we had at the end. Again, didn't have too much pace in qualifying. There was a few things that we missed and discovered later on, but the race pace we had was awesome. And again, staying clean and all of that sort of aspect. But it was a tough start to the year. Like that the car was not. I just remember St. Pete. I tried to push one corner and in qualifying, and like the thing would just be doing things that weren't expected, and you figure out 3 races later why, right? And I can't go into details, but it was a challenging start, not unexpected, but it was not easy. So just putting that all into perspective, and the results and the achievements we'd had in combination with the challenges and what I had to be a part of building, I don't understand why the environment that you're in isn't considered slightly more, whatever it does. There's no point complaining about it because it's the way it is, and you have to work and put yourself in a position to show what you can do. But I want a direct comparison to a full championship teammate who's been there. We can work together, and I can genuinely learn some stuff that I haven't learned yet, right? Because at the end of the day, Robert on the ovals last year, like, was super quick, really, really fast. But I and the team couldn't really understand why, right? And that I want to be able to learn from someone like, give me Dixon, and like I really want to pick the brains of as to why, with the same package, you're able to get a bit more out of here and there. And yeah, that's just kind of the mindset where I'm in right now. And then you can have that comparison. And, he's always had really competitive teammates to learn from. You've got Palou now, you had Dario back then. Who was the other one before that? That was one.
We're too young.
Yeah, maybe. But that's my point. Is like, you're learning from the fastest guys, and as a team that just benefits you so much. So I don't know my full potential, right? Like I know I would be very competitive in a solid situation, but who knows, right? They don't know that. But I pull out results when it's needed to. It's kind of, a good example of that this year is VK, right? It's just constantly getting really, really strong results, right? And punching, I would say, sometimes above the car's weight. Other times, I think, it's very strong. Like I know on ovals that they have a great package, and he's been extracting that. I think Gateway up until the last yellow, they were super fast, and I think that's kind of the example of where I'd like to be in that sense, right? I think I have the capability to do that.
Nice. And I guess just on kind of the dynamics of some of these discussions, you obviously have been at so many races this year. Like when you are there and you're in the paddock, like what is do you go in with a plan? Like, do you literally just walk around? Like, what are you doing? Because obviously you've worked hard to get the parking pass. Like, what do you actually do when you're there to try and engineer these things?
Apart from pretending to be an Australian.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I don't want to answer that one fully.
No, that's fine.
No, because it's tough. Like psychologically, it sucks. Because it's not my actions that should have led to this situation, right? In this circumstance or anything. So I do struggle with it sometimes. Like I get to the end of the day where I'm like, right, it's time to go, but most places it's okay. There's a couple of places to hang out and chill out, but it's not like an F1 paddock. It's not, in Europe, I would probably have an easier time with it. Just an example was Gateway. It was so hot, humid. Luckily, like I know a few people and they're very welcoming with letting me chill in their RVs. But without that, I couldn't have lasted more than an hour, I reckon. No, it's tough. I don't know. The difference between the F1 side of it, like I was reserve, right? And you're on the sidelines, but you're so involved and trying to learn and be there. This is like, I'm a fan who's trying to be there, right? So I'm making myself seen, but I don't have any more access other than some nice comfy RVs than a fan, because I'm not, other than the meetings that I might plan. It's tough. It's a weird one. That's the that's the best way to describe it.
And I guess you kind of touched on this earlier. We've got the new car coming in a season and a bit's time, and I guess a lot of the consideration for that is budget, because teams are going to have to build and develop these new cars. So kind of how important is budget towards next season, I guess, and beyond, and kind of how much could that of a sticking point be in come negotiations?
I've heard a range of numbers of what it could cost, but again, the teams have been very, very fortunate to run these cars for such a long time, right? And you've had additional parts been added and extra cost, etc. But if you're in Europe, you're having to change these cars every 6 years, right? F2, it changes. F3, it changes. And the cost is less, but it's still a Dallara car in Europe, and they're able to make this work. and the budgets are 5 times less, right, in Europe for various reasons. I do understand that. So it's not like they haven't had time to prepare for this. But yeah, it does add a factor into it. I think that, but another thing here is like spare parts, etc. You're going to be in a year where you're going to have very limited number of parts, probably because of, I don't want to say there's going to be a shortage, but it's finite. They're going to have a tough time putting all the cars needed to down for the 500 and for everyone to have spares, right? Like that's a lot of logistics. They've got to produce 33 cars at least, at a minimum, right? You have 4 races before the 500. There's going to be someone who tubs a car, right? So you're going to have a community spare, or at least multiple, at these races. So you're not going to end up with 33 cars. You're going to end up with 37, 38, 39, 40 cars, right? All these teams want spare parts because no parts are created equally, right? So you're going to want you're going to want to buy as many as you can. That's not going to be possible. So to add into this, there is the equation of like the budget, and yes, it's a massive expense, but it's a massive expense anyway, right? Racing every year is not cheap. And if you have a driver who brings budget or a situation like that, but they cause X amount in damage over other guy who doesn't, you might end up not being able to be in the situation you want to because of that, right? Accidents happen, but there are some that cause more than others, and that might be a problematic, that maybe some people overlook. So I think, yes, to answer your question, budget is a factor, and a consideration to a lot of people, but performance, right? At the end of the day, you're here. If you're not thinking about performance, I don't think you should be, completely thinking. You're just not in the right mindset for me as a race team, right? And there is an addition that in 28 you're going to have to think about the spare parts, that kind of thing, the performance side of things, right? And no one wants the cars to crash, but that's the way it goes.
And I guess, unfortunately, this isn't kind of the first time I've been in this circumstance where you're out of an IndyCar seat and trying to find something for a future year. So just kind of want to know, like, how similar does this feel to 2024? Yes, you kind of had the McLaren stuff at the start of the year, but that became apparent it's never going to become a full-time thing. So I guess, does that kind of experience help? Maybe how does it compare, your kind of optimism compared to a couple of years ago? You kind of tell us maybe a comparison about these 2 years.
I didn't think about that. It's a different type of optimism. I think that, yeah, I think I was a lot more questionable that year, and I was in a different mindset, right? Because I didn't quite, I felt very hard done by in the situation, and very stunted in a growth way, and having to prove to everyone it's gonna sound like 2 very similar things, but I was in a kind of revenge type situation where, like, I just need to get back it, like I need to be racing and driving, and the whole situation with McLaren was very unexpected and quite difficult to navigate, because every week was like, there was in the open test, I I was in the UK and I got notified like 2 days before to go to, right? And I ended up doing 3 laps because of the weather and unexpected problems. And then returning back to the UK. I'm like, okay, right, that was unexpected. That the last minute, decisions to all of this was quite tough to understand. But I'd been having conversations with them from the previous year, right? So it wasn't the opportunity itself was not unexpected. The opportunities as it was ongoing were like, okay, are we doing it this weekend? No, we're not. And I had to give priority to Jota, and at the end of the day, I knew there was a bigger opportunity coming with Jota. The whole Prema thing I didn't know about till later on, and it was just one of those things that at the time, I got exactly what I wanted, and it was a hard deal to turn down, right? Again, it hasn't come to complete fruition, but I did get back into IndyCar. It was going to be an amazing project. What I would say is this year is, I just accept it, right? Like, what else can you do? You sign a great deal into a long-term project, and it doesn't quite turn out the way you expect. And I mean, I can't blame myself, right? It's just whereas the time before, I blame myself, I blame everything, and it's not the case now. It's like, okay, dude, you need to make this work. You need to have a career, and yeah, I live out here. My whole life is out here, so I don't really want to give that up just yet. And it's just an acceptance versus a prove, right? I still love to prove what I can and prove people wrong, but you understand like the little difference I'm talking about here.
Yeah. Interesting. So it's interesting there that you used the phrasing hard done by, because that's something I've literally written down in our doc in terms of how do you kind of, and I respect if you can't go into tons of detail and don't want to, but like, how do you navigate not feeling too hard done by when on 2 separate occasions, things that have happened that are basically out of your control to like lose those drives? Like, just on that mentality aspect, like how do you overcome those situations where you might feel like you're hard done by?
Look, one is there's a couple of things here. There's learning, right? I think on the first situation that I had, there's obviously a lot of things that you can do better, and I had to reflect on those. And whether it's right or wrong, at the end of the day, you have to always be learning and doing a better job. And I would say I'm a lot, calmer. Everyone has their moments, right? But I'm a lot calmer, and I'm a lot more introspective than I used to be on that aspect. And I came into a very different world with no role model, right? No one to teach me out here. And I think now I kind of see what, in Europe is the golden boy versus out here, and it's 2 very different things. And I'm talking about in the team, not outside, right? Like, it's all great to be loved outside, but everyone's different. So that's 1. 2 is that in the grand scheme of things, I'm not hard done by, right? Like it's a shame, going from being on the edge of Formula One to now being on the edge of, even being a professional driver, right? Like in highly competitive series, that's quite a tough thing to swallow sometimes. But at the same time, like I live a nice life, but there's the days where you're like, you could have done this, you could have done this, you could have done this. But I think it's very tough to continuously live by, the could have beens, etc. Like at some point you have to accept it. It took a long time for me to accept the F1 stuff. It's taken me, being in and out of the IndyCar reality to accept that. But at the same time, like I still think there's a really good chance you'll see me in IndyCar next year. But I can't say for sure right now, and I don't know. But I just, I have that feeling. Yeah, then the other side of it is just the aspect of going and doing where you're appreciated, right? And that, that's a really underappreciated science in itself. Like I want to be somewhere where people want to have me and work with me, and I think it's very tough to go somewhere and continuously be somewhere where you're not wanted, right? Like, and it's not to say that I've had that, but I see it in other people, and that's kind of like a tough pill to swallow as well, right? So I'm fortunate in that aspect that at the end of the day, when I get hired for these things, it's because people want me and appreciate me, and it's not really because of other reasons. So yeah, I think those are the main three. But yeah, in racing terms, me and a certain young French driver who might have had similar kind of racing backgrounds have had a tough time and not had it easy. But I feel like I had a tough time on the F1 side and had a tough time on my last 2 IndyCar attempts, right? But again, it's I hope I have a long career.
Nice. I wasn't going to ask this, but because it's not particularly topical, but now that you've kind of raised it a couple of times in different ways, how much do you think about F1? Like, what could have been there? How long did it kind of take to get over the fact that if timing had been different, you could have been in F1? Like, purely because you've mentioned this a couple of times, I just wondered kind of that situation.
I dropped off of that. Like, it was on my mind a lot for a while around that time. And like the reality is of like, how close was I don't know, right? Was it discussed? Yes, of course it was discussed. Did I meet the benchmarks that were set to me at the beginning of the year to get into F1? Yes. Was that verbal and not contractual? Yes. But like, at the same time, I think the would it there's pros and cons to it, right? Is it awesome? Is the car okay? Up until this year, it was the car mega? Yes. Was the environment awesome? Yes. Do I like all the attention, media, the lack of time that you have to yourself? No. I think that's very tough, and we're very fortunate in IndyCar to have a very different schedule and nice lifestyle, which is respectable. I do appreciate that a lot, and that almost they get paid tons more and all of that, but there are ways to look at it and equalize it a little bit without the fame and fortune included into that. But again, we live very nice lives. Like, it's no professional racing driver can really complain about that relative to other people. And we have our own community of fans, etc., that I think they get great access to, and 99 times out of 100 very respectable and appreciate us for what we do, and we try and give back to the community as much as possible. It's nice to do that instead of I don't want to say a fake online persona, but F1 drivers are untouchable. They're all amazing guys and really good people, but you get this appearance of them that paints a different picture sometimes, etc., whatever. But no, I do. The tough part for me is looking at the drivers and knowing, I could hold my own against most of these guys, right? Like, there's no point giving comparisons, but I wish I just got 1 year, like 1 year to give it a go and see how it was, and over some of the guys that got 3 years, and give me one of them. You can have two. I'll have one and see. Just for the experience. Like it was amazing to drive these cars. It was amazing to be in these teams. But yeah, to get it and just, you know, even one race, right? But at the end of the day, everyone forgets the one race. But it's cool. It's lucky. But then I go to Le Mans, I go to the 500, and I'm like, this is cool. You know, it's different. I think F1 in its own way is awesome. Do I prefer it, you know, in the 2007 era? Maybe more. I mean, people go back to the 90s, 80s, etc. I don't know those, other than what I see on YouTube, and it looks great. But that's what we have in IndyCar. Like the 80s, 90s, even 70s style is what we have right now. And people, you know, miss the golden era, right? And just, okay, you know, I think I just watched the Markham race. Jesus Christ, the adverts are, it's painful, right? But it pays the bills. I mean, you guys have the Sky Sports side of things which cover it, and you don't have to do it. But dude, I'm, you know, I know it goes yellow, but like, wow, I wish we could substitute the marketing, right? Like, and you know, go into some of the behind the scenes stories and stuff in that time instead of having to see, I don't know, jeans or something. I'm sorry, it's just it's the way I look at it. But I think it's we've got a very special project that I think could be great. Like, it is great, but you know, I want it to be great for everyone, and it's a really undervalued. Like, this is the thing about the money side of things, right? If you look at IndyCar and the sports franchises in the US, right, and you take NASCAR with how their charters have grown, right? You can't buy a charter for less than $75 million. I don't know. That's what I've read and what I understand. Okay, IndyCar, we've started small. You can, if someone wants to sell, which is the biggest problem, you can buy a charter for a small sum of, should we say, the rough number I heard and read was between 10 and 15, right? What sports franchise can you buy a team for in the US that has viewership of over 1 million per weekend, weekday, whatever it is, for less than, I don't know, hundreds of millions? You can't, right? So in terms of a franchise, it is the most undervalued franchise, right? Okay, the running costs, etc. But if you have 10 to 15 million to spend, right, to buy something, and you have more money than that. So I just, like, I look at it, you know, you've got the what were the Lakers quoted at, 11.2 billion or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. And you got 11 billion. I mean, come on. Like, let's look at this logically and go, okay, we have a product here which, you know, if you look at all the companies that are in and around IndyCar on an investment level, on a ownership level, and on a marketing level, you have so many billion-dollar companies. I wrote a list of 28 plus, right, that are associated, and that list grows every month or so, right? You'll get one extra that come in. It's coming there. Like, it's really, I think people are noticing it, but at the same time, like, people aren't focusing on the fact of, like, that type of style, right? You know, we have weekend attendances which for the size of the venue, right? Like, how do you fit over 100,000 people into Long Beach when there's only, like, so many stands? That's incredible, in my opinion. Could you fit 200,000? Yeah, I think you could, right? If you change the way it works and counted different things. But those attendance numbers, etc., it's impressive. I don't know what your question was. I can't remember, but I think that was, exaggerated.
It's about F1.
That was the F1 question. Wonderful.
So I guess you can't really go too much into the situation, but I guess we want kind of a little bit more kind of the timeline of what happened prior to this season starting, with kind of Prema and the uncertainty there. So obviously you could have run a full-time IMSA program alongside any potential IndyCar program you have, but kind of where on the timeline did you recognize that maybe a full-time season wasn't going to be possible, and then maybe kind of, was that a thinking towards signing that IMSA deal?
Yeah, so we had challenges right from May onwards, I think, which we worked through. It wasn't impossible. And we finished the season very strongly on a performance basis. I got the feeling that things were going to be a bit tough, maybe 2 weekends to go. And it seemed as if things were going to head in a direction which would kind of solve the problems, and that I don't think went ahead. And so I just got the feeling, and I did, I'm in this situation where like I'm not going. I don't ever think that anything is done unless I see paperwork in all of my things in life now, just because I have that mindset, and I've seen it too many times. So I, at that point, spoke to Adam. Actually, he gave me a call and was like, would you consider it? And I was like, okay, full season, IMSA's in GTD is 10 races versus like an LMP2 was 7 races, and no clashes LMP2, 2 clashes. Oh, well, it was 1 clash at the time, and now Washington VIR is a clash. But I was like, look, it's doable. It'd be a really busy year because of all the testing that he'd have. But yeah, let's do it. So I got permission to do both. I would have to give priority to Long Beach, and at that time I think that was when it was being discussed that Long Beach would probably be our first race. We missed the first couple, so I would have had to give priority, but at a certain point I would have been happy to do both. It wouldn't have been too much of a challenge, just a bit, take it easy on the first lap and then sort it out from there. But actually, it worked out really well for the IndyCar schedule, because I could do IMSA FP1 and 2, and then IndyCar FP1. I don't do qualies because Adam does the qualies. So I would be able to do FP1 in IndyCar Friday night, FP2 and qualifying, right, to then jump straight into the race Saturday evening. And then I would get warm up again on Sunday morning and the race. So I'd be like perfectly warmed up for the IndyCar stuff. There'd be no complaints, because I'd always have like a session before the important part of the weekend, right? Whether it's quali or the race. And then the IMSA side, right? Like actually, it was way easier to drive on a street circuit than I expected. We weren't fast at all that weekend, but because of the ABS, it was just point and shoot. So it actually would have been okay. But back to the original part of the question. Then at that point, I did a test and just basically ironed out what I was going to do with Adam, and that covered me off, right? Like I was able to do Daytona, Sebring, and yeah, that was just before the IndyCar season even starts. So it was like, well, we'll see where this goes. And then it was possibly 500 beyond, then it was just 500, and then, at the end of the day, I'm just doing IMSA.
That's all the serious stuff done. I just, one more question to kind of finish it off. I remember last time we had you on, because we do it with every IndyCar driver, we got you to add songs to our playlist that we do, and you added I can't remember what the other one was.
Can you guess? This is a better question.
Oh, was it Dermot Kennedy?
No.
It actually, what? No. So it was. I mean, this was back in December 23. So
it was. Do you have a list, Archie? Do you want me to?
I know one of them.
So what's the one you know?
Straight and Narrow, Sam Barber.
Oh, okay, yeah. That
Your
was when I started
one,
to get into country. Yeah.
Your other one was Seek Bromance by Avicii.
No, I got
So I wanted to bring that up because I didn't know of Sam Barber then, and he's now like one of my favorite artists because you mentioned that song.
Right, so you want some more?
So that's
then?
quite
Is that what
cool.
you're saying?
Well, no. So what I was going to say is I saw on Twitter that you'd said that you like Noah Kahan's new album, and Buffalo Traffic Jam, both of which I really like. So
okay.
do you like favorite songs from those two? Like,
so
not for the playlist, just kind of intrigue.
No. Like I like a lot of Noah's stuff, but like I like "Call Your Mom."
Okay.
I think that's a great song. Of Buffalo Traffic Jam. Where is it? I'm looking right now because I'm just seeing what my recently played was. Because when I hear them, I know them, but I'm bad with names.
No, same.
And funny enough, I like remember word for word most of the lyrics, but I can never remember the names of the songs. Let's have a look actually. There's like "Forget Your Roots." "Fool's Gold" has a great intro.
You listen to the new album?
I just started to actually.
It's good.
Yeah,
Buying Dirt is one in particular that's good.
Was it
Buying Dirt? It's on the new album. It's on the new album. So
I haven't listened to that one yet. And then so I like Chance Pena. Have you heard of his stuff?
I've heard of him.
Okay.
I haven't listened much to him, but I've heard of him.
You should. It's good. It's good stuff. Let's see if there's one more I can give you. Stone's Throw "The Red Clay Strays." Have you heard that one?
Okay, I've heard the Red Clay Strays. I haven't heard the song.
Yeah, it's a good intro.
So interesting. So you're one of the people who's come over because we spoke to Louis, and I don't know if he's been converted, but we spoke to Louis probably 2 years ago, and he'd said that he's just having none of country music.
He's all for show. He dresses like it, but he doesn't.
Buxton's the exact same. He said like no country music, like he just can't get into it.
So I mean, I don't know the exact answer to this, but I might be wrong, right? And forgive me, diehard fans, but I feel like those are on the edge of country music. Like it's more indie music, which fits perfectly for indie stuff, you know. But I really like. I've always liked that kind of style of music. That's been my thing. I like sad, depressing shit.
Any other artists in that kind of realm that you like?
I think so. Those were my go-tos. I went to a Post Malone concert. That was good, actually. It's impressive.
He's a bit country now as well.
But that was his original stuff. I mean, well, apart from his original song, which was impressive.
Okay, Callum, I've done the maths. It's been 972 days since we last on the podcast. So let's hope it's not that long until the next episode. But yeah, pretty wild, pretty long time. You seem confused by that, but I promise you. 20th of December 2023, I found the date. So long overdue.
972, you said, right?
972 days. So we got there just under the 1,000 mark.
It is kind of wild to think about all that's happened since then. Because we didn't even speak about it. Like the whole WEC stuff with Joseph, like that went bloody well. Like all considered, like a privateer team. Like
it was. I mean, I didn't do us favors at Le Mans and Sao Paulo, but we took it to Penske out the box. Qatar was second, and I did that. Like I also I was very quick, very, very quick in that car, surprisingly. Like Qatar, I did all my stints on triple stint tires, right? Which is funny to see because my pace was really strong and we were the only team to do it. And so I do wonder if we'd done stuff quite differently, how much pace I would have had. But I think I think it was the sixth or the other one. I don't know. They were very quick in that race, but held them off. Imola, we had a brake issue. which I don't really put on myself too much. But that was a challenge, and we didn't gel with that track at all. Spa, okay, we got a bit lucky on the strategy and with the way the race panned out, but we had the pace, right? We had great clear air pace, and again, I was able to keep the Penske behind. And look at what they've done ever since in IMSA, right? They are the kings of that car. So to be able to do what we did, and then I think, you know, Le Mans with the spare car, we didn't put a foot wrong the whole race. The crew doing that with no sleep. It was a great effort as a team. It's just a shame it had to be like that, and you know, the way it damaged the tub was just like this with the way the wishbone was mounted on the bottom of the tub. And I think in any other situation it wouldn't have been as bad. But yeah, like I find it funny, right? Like, because some people ended up doing Daytona in that car and didn't gel well with it at all. And I how would I say it? It wasn't as enjoyable to drive as I expected. Like, but it was a very tough car to drive. Like to race 24 hours in that car, or maybe even the GTP in total style. I think they've all improved a lot over the years, but when those cars first came out, what you had to do with it was tough. So like I give kudos to everyone those first couple of years who was racing not just the Porsche. It with those tires, no blankets, that's one of the toughest things I've ever driven, right? Like, so now I think they've developed it a ton, whether it's on the braking systems, etc. But I tell you what, it was hard to understand. It was F1 level technology put into a car that was very heavy, tires that don't work for the first 3 laps. And when I say, like, I've come out the box on cold tires in IndyCar, I've come out the box on cold tires with an F1 car, like, that's incredible, man. Like, we were I think it was Qatar qualifying, right? I did came out the box, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 is like a 90 kind of kink right onto the a little straight there. I was straight, like, and I've done 3 corners, and I just went to accelerate. I shifted from 3rd to 4th, and the thing snapped on me, right? And I'm not even like 40% throttle. So you can imagine, like, the outlaps in the races. Okay, quali is different because you haven't got the brake temperature, so there isn't like until the hyperpole, you haven't had like a heat soak. But well, I didn't spin it or anything, but I was like, whoa, okay, the race, you know, now you need to come out the box and be so careful. Same thing at Imola. Like, I was going 30 miles an hour, just tap the brakes out the box, front left locks up, right? And you're just tiptoeing around. So, you know, the new tires are, I think, from what I understand, miles better, but it was a very steep learning curve very quickly. And you have to have a lot of patience, risk versus reward, which I had to learn a little bit. But yeah, I was fast. I was very fast in those cars.
I thought it'd be remiss not to mention that. So
yeah.
No. It's fair enough, but dude, I've driven everything except the Formula E, right? And even that, the new car, I was actually quite tempted by. There was, I don't know, it was probably way too late. Yeah, it's way too late now. But there was a talk or two to maybe go and do that, which would have been a bit of a lifestyle change. But that looks cool, right? Relative to where they started. You know, that car with slick tires, I think on a lot of short, quick circuits, you Monaco, I think it will be fast. Like, that'll be impressive. But this new IndyCar, sorry to jump on topics, but
No,
that's fine.
that was one thing that I missed to say earlier, was that car, I think, will be very good racing wise. Very good. Maybe street circuits and stuff, it will take a bit of time, but I think you're going to see some great racing on the ovals. I think you're going to see some great racing on the road courses. Just by the way the aerodynamic package is designed, I think it's going to be great for that. And I know Dallara, when they brought out the Formula 2 car that I drove, and then the Super Formula car, there was a year between the two, right? And the performance differences from the F2 to the Super Formula in terms of the weight, and okay, the downforce is spec'd for F2, right? They weren't going to change that, but they were able to make that car, I think, at least over 40 kilos lighter, right? With a year's difference in development. I'm really excited to see not only on the performance side what they've done with the IndyCar, but the safety side as well. Like, it's gonna be really nice compared to what we've got. But knowing everything that they've added on the weight side structurally and safety wise on IndyCar, the fact that it's performed so well is impressive. Like, if you told me that was your car right now, I'd go, okay, this car's like 4 years old, right? You wouldn't know that it's 13 years old. So I think, to be fair to them, I know people have been begging for a new car all the time. Hopefully it meets expectations, but also at the same time, fair play to this IR12 tub that I keep seeing, or 11, whatever it is. It's stood some shit, I'll tell you that.
Had a lot of stuff bolted onto it.
We hit people, like you saw Markham, how hard people were like hitting each other.
The wild thing was, though, everyone was hitting each other really hard, and then Rossi gets the puncture when Palou has the little tap. That was, I know that's not to do with the chassis, but that was still bizarre.
Yeah, so the tires, like, I think they're really strong relative to other championships, but I think with the way the tire's constructed, you have obviously the main surface, right? The flat surface, and you have the sidewall. But right here, where it joins from main carcass to the sidewall, I think is like the thinnest point. And so you have a lot of structural rigidity where it blends onto the wheel. And then right at the top is where it flexes, and that's where you get the kind of, you get the flex from the wheel, right? But you get the flex of where the carcass is and generating the grip. But all the wires that are inside kind of, I believe, stop at this point. So where his front wing touched was right here. And then, yeah, it's like, I guess, half the thickness of where the wheel is, or, it hasn't got the wire structural integrity of the top. So that is kind of why. And again, imagine, I think it only took, also, if that front wing had have had a contact with someone else at the beginning of the race and just sharpened it up, yeah, it's going to slice through. I think on its own, it might not, and you'd actually buckle the wing more itself. But all these guys, like, no one looks in their fucking mirrors. Like, I know we can wheel bang, and like that was it was way more on Alex. Oh, they're both called Alex. Way more on Palou than Rossi. But like, and I don't want to, but you're alongside. Just he held the wheel like as much as possible. Like, and the same with power. Like I have the peripheral vision to see if someone's dive bombing. I'm not going to keep turning in. Like, it's not always all the time, but I mean, don't take this the wrong way, Alex, or Will, if you're watching this. But it's just like that hairpin was just chaos, right? Like, I think it was so slow that people stopped looking and just were trying to go around it.
Well, we had a big discussion about this on our Markham reviews. That kind of corner something you'd be a fan of, or something that you would?
Oh no, it's tedious. It's like Mickey Mouse. I think at the end of the day, when it's clear, so this is a bone to pick I have with some tracks, is right, like on its own, spread out, great overtaking opportunity, right? You saw it with Ericsson at the end. But the problem is everyone concertinas into there. So every restart, right, you get this too wide, but no one fits, right? And you can't dive bomb anyone who has a car in front of you, because I'm not going to risk sending it on the brakes knowing that there's a car at the fucking apex, that I have to stop for. Like, you know, you need to go to overtake. If the guy's on the outside, he's just going to go all the way around. But either the car who's already at the apex is at risk because you're going to hit him if you're the inside car, or the guy on the outside is going to get spun round, which we saw multiple times. So ultimately, the corner's too slow. Right, it's just, if you're having to clutch in, which they all were on restarts, it's too slow. So I think like the minimum, instead of being 25 mile an hour, it should be raised a little bit. Long Beach is the way that it is because it's Long Beach, but I don't think, you know, it looks to me like they ran out of concrete, for example, and just...
It looked weird. It did look very strange.
And I shortly am going to make my own business of making radius walls, like that you can bolt onto these things. Because, like, I looked at the Foster incident, right, and I was like, okay, you did it a couple of laps before and made it work. You should know that at that angle, maybe it's a bit different. And obviously, you know, you can't get it right every time, and I felt for him on that side. But Kyle posted a picture of it afterwards. Jesus, that was a sharp, like that's a sharp angle. And you know, you can't peripherally, like, imagine you're going that speed, you can't judge that, like, you only look at certain parts of the corner, right? You can't judge perfectly where the edge is. So they need to figure out a way, whether it's like a small raised curb that's at the base of that you can't go up on, because, you know, guys are going to break their wrists on these on these. It's not right to you change as well. So take Foster's incident, well, both of their incidents, right? If they had have locked up and hit the wall, they're probably hitting a tire wall, but because they clipped that, they hit a concrete wall, which does more damage and is more risk to the individual driver and debris, etc. So I think that's the smart thing to do, right? And like, it's just, I know people are like, oh, well, don't crash. If you clip it like that, millimeters, which we do 100 times, 1,000 times a race, right? Like, we get as close as we can. You know, it's going to happen. Kyle's one of the best drivers on a street circuit I've ever seen. That was a hard hit. So yeah, anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Otherwise,
that's interesting to know.
It looked painful as anything to race. Like that is one of those ones where I had this mindset with the last time we did the Nashville street circuit, which is, look, I'm probably going to get crashed into. I'm just going to survive and see where I come out on the last stop. That looked like it was for Markham, but also, you know, the tires, some of the guys weren't working well with the surface, right? Like Newgarden, and I watched his onboard and he was skating around, and that's not a problem with the car. That's just the tire not working with the surface. That's something that needs to be figured out, because, you know, we had it at Detroit on some of the concrete surfaces the first year we went there. The under safety car, it would be like skating on ice. That's something that needs to be figured out. The hairpin just needs to increase the pace a little bit. The rest of the track seemed good. Like, it was, once people got confidence to overtake and send it, it was some ballsy moves.
972 days from now is the 16th of April 2029. So
that's where we were 15 minutes ago.
So let's not hope it's that long, because you'll have an IndyCar driver and we'll have plenty to speak to you about. But Callum, we obviously really appreciate your time. Fantastic insight as always. And from no, from a podcast as well as a British perspective, we obviously wish you the very best and trying to return to IndyCar in the near future.
Well, let's revisit in January. Let's have a target in January. How about that?
Let's see. Cool.
Nice.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.